Last video, we talked about animals that eat humans. Now, let's jump straight to the creepier and talk about the times when humans ate other humans. We'll start with gross and work our way up to the most shocking. Issei Sagawa. Imagine a cannibal outright admitting to his crimes and still somehow getting away with it. Well, that's the story of Issei Sagawa, an infamous man from Japan who killed and ate a friend of his. It all started in 1981 while Sagawa was studying in Paris. There, he invited a friend of his, Renee Hartfelt, over to his home. Little did poor old Renee know that she'd get assaulted and murdered as soon as she stepped foot into that house of horror. And of course, Issei didn't stop there. He went on to feed on her body parts, eating her limb by limb over the course of 3 days. When he was done, he walked over to the woods to dump the parts he didn't feel like eating. And that's where he was spotted by witnesses and arrested. But here's where things get a little too kooky. Instead of trying to act like he was innocent, Issei pretty much admitted to committing all of these crimes immediately. And for some crazy reason, the French police were like, "Yeah, nah, he's good, let him go." Those Frenchies probably just didn't want to do the paperwork. Okay, it wasn't exactly like that, but the fact is, Issei was deemed legally insane. This basically means that the law said you can't really blame him for his actions. He didn't know what he was doing. So, in 1984, he was deported from France and sent back to Japan. But here's the thing. The folks over in Japan realized that they didn't want to deal with a psycho murder cannibal roaming the streets. So they actually said he was totally sane and wanted him to stand trial. But the French authorities had already thrown in the towel and said the case was closed and sealed, which made it impossible to charge him in Japan.
No! God!
He remained free up until his death in 2022. In 2009, he even got his very own Vice interview where he talked about all of the women he brought over to his home in an attempt to kill them, but was not successful until he met poor Renee. Can you imagine being the person who interviewed him? It's the kind of experience you'd put at the top of your resume under extreme occupational hazards. Okay, let's move away from purposeful cannibalism and talk about a sort of accidental cannibalism. The Donner Party. In the winter of 1846 to 47, a real-life horror story unfolded in the Sierra Nevada mountains that could chill the bones of even the most seasoned chef. This is the tale of the Donner Party, a group of pioneers who set out for California but found themselves on the menu of misfortune instead. It's a story that adds a whole new layer of meaning to family dinner. The Donner Party, initially filled with optimism and dreams of a fertile Californian paradise, made a series of unfortunate decisions and detours that led them straight into an icy trap. With over 80 members, including families with children, this group bit off more than they could chew. Sorry, had to say it. When they decided to take the untested Hastings cutoff. This route promised a shortcut, but ended up being about as quick as a 3-legged turtle. As the brutal winter set in the snow piled up to 20 feet high, trapping them and burying their hopes, food supplies fell faster than the snow, leading to a dire menu of boiled hides, twigs, and finally, a chilling course of necessity, cannibalism. Desperation deepened, leading to dark whispers of murder to preserve the dwindling food supply. It wasn't just the frozen or sick who were consumed. Some of the healthy were eyed like the last slice of pizza at a party. One of the members, Patrick Dolan, proposed a macabre lottery system to decide who would die for the others to live, illustrating just how grim the choices they faced were. The situation escalated when some members, including the young Louis Kesselberg, were accused of killing their companions for a meal, turning survival to straight-up murder. Can you imagine sitting around that fire, passing around a helping of Uncle Jim? It's a dinner party faux pas that makes showing up without a bottle of wine seem downright polite. After 2 months, the rescue team arrived, and the situation looked like a zombie apocalypse, only worse. Among the rescued was Louis Kesselberg, a man who redefined the term foodie. Surrounded by human remains, he was found prepping the lungs and liver of Tamsin Donner for his next gourmet meal. Accusations of murder swirled around him, but in the chaos of culinary survival, nothing was proven. Let's switch back to, I guess we could call it purposeful cannibalism. This one, even stranger yet, because it was the victim who wanted to be eaten. Armin Meiwes. You know, there's nothing as heartwarming as seeing two totally messed up people get together and do something truly insane. Armin Meiwes is a man who, let's just say, had a thing for human flesh. But he wasn't like any old murderer who'd just take away an innocent person's life for no reason. Oh no. Instead, Armin decided to place an ad in the paper asking for someone to volunteer their body for, let's just say, scientific research. Armin made it very clear that he was straight up going to kill the volunteers and eat their flesh. So obviously, no one answered the ad, right? Wrong. Enter Burned Brands, a man who wanted to show Armin that he was the biggest freak on campus. Turns out Brands wanted nothing more than to be eaten by another man. I mean, who am I to judge young love? So in 2001, the pair met up and Burns swallowed about 20 sleeping pills and a bottle of cough syrup. After the drugs took effect, Armin got to work. First off, he amputated penis. This was a special request made by Brands himself, and because Armin knew how to give a guy a good time, he completed the meal with salt, pepper, wine, and garlic and cooked it up all nicely. The two of them tried eating it together like a couple on their first date, but it said that Brands was way too weak to eat anything. You know, from the 20 sleeping pills and all the blood spilling out of his crotch and all. Armin then completely killed Brands and proceeded to eat a large amount of his flesh. He would continue to dine on Brands' body over the course of 10 months, keeping it stored in the freezer in some conveniently placed pizza boxes. Why not just eat the pizza like a normal person? Now, I know what you're thinking. 10 months is a long time. So how exactly did Armin get caught? Well, in December 2002, the guy placed another advertisement, and this time someone was sane enough to call the police about it. Shocking, no one did it after the first ad, huh? When investigators checked his home, they found a ton of frozen body parts, as well as a videotape he made recording the whole, date he had with Brands. And after all that, Armin was only given 8.5 years in jail. Imagine having to be his cellmate, though. You'd have to sleep with one eye open because you'd never know if the guy was going to chop your penis while you slept and start cooking it up with some butter and garlic. Okay, let's go back to survival cannibals. They are a little less creepy. The Society of Snow. On October 12, 1972, the bunch of poor souls aboard Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 embarked on what they assumed would be a pleasant little trip from Montevideo to Santiago, Chile. But soon, things started going wrong. Oh, so wrong. Turns out the plane wasn't really equipped to make that journey. On top of that, the weather got really bad and the pilot made a teensy tiny mistake when deciding the route and crash landed right into the Andes. Out of the 45 people on the plane, 12 died right on impact. The remaining must have thought they were truly lucky to have survived a literal plane crash. But as you could probably guess, their luck was about to run out. The survivors began to gather any supplies that they could, but surprise, surprise, after about a week, they were completely out of food. They tried ripping up the plane seats, hoping it could serve as something edible, but nada. And this is when a shining, bloody bulb lit up above someone's head. There's like 33 of us, there's like 32 high-quality, delicious meals, but this wasn't like an all-out murder spree. The group actually talked about it and had a proper discussion. Can you imagine what that must have been like? So Joe, after a group meeting, we've all decided that you're the best candidate to eat. Wait, hold up. Don't I get a say in this? We've noted your request and we'll respond in 3 to 5 business days. Now, let's take your measurements so we can count the servings. Now, jokes aside, the group focused on trying to eat the flesh of dead passengers first. It was the icy cold Andes, so it's not like the flesh was rotting or anything. Waste not, want not, right? Some passengers even agreed that if they died, the rest of their team was allowed to eat them. Now, that's what I call noble. Nobly delicious. After 72 days of surviving in the bitter wilderness, the survivors were finally rescued. In the end, only about 16 people managed to make it out alive, beating the extreme cold, dehydration, and the absolute lack of seasoning on Joe's thighs. And finally, we will circle back to the real murderous cannibals and the most shocking. Just to keep you guys on your toes, oh, toes. I bet cannibals like eating toes. Sawney Bean. You know how the UK has terrible cuisine? Well, turns out Sawney Bean is a man who decided to take that criticism to the next level. This dude was a cave-dwelling cannibal who lived in Scotland with his family in the 16th century. And for over 25 years, his family feasted on the flesh of anyone unlucky enough to be passing by their cave. It's estimated that around 1,000 people fell victim to the Bean tribe's little midnight snack routine. So, how exactly did they get around to this, unique lifestyle? Well, turns out Sawney didn't really have much in the way of usable skills. So when he married his wife, he planned on making do by robbing people who happened to be strolling the countryside. But here's the thing. If you rob someone and let them go, they might come back and identify you. And so, Sawney decided that the best way to get rid of the evidence is to just kill the person that he robbed. Clearly, this is a man who let his intrusive thoughts do the talking. Soon afterward, though, he was hit with another problem. Burying this many bodies was becoming kind of a chore. And it's not like he's got infinite real estate in that cave of his. So, Bean decided what any insane person would do. He cut out all the issues by literally cutting up the victims and eating them. And honestly, considering how hard it was to find a protein-rich diet back then, this must have felt like the ultimate life hack. Soon enough, Mrs. Bean popped out a bunch of little beanie babies, and now you had a whole cave filled with murderous cannibals. It's said that after nearly 2 decades of this going on, people from Edinburgh finally caught on, and when folks finally showed up at the cave where the family lived, they found it was filled with human meat hanging from the walls like a butcher shop. I mean, I will never get that image out of my head. Eventually, all 48 members of the family clan were arrested, and they were all sentenced to death. I don't think anyone feasted on their remains, though, so hey, they got off easy compared to their victims. From Issei Sagawa, the guy who got away with eating his friend, to Sawney Bean, the cannibal tribe who feasted on people for 20 years. Those were just some incidents of humans eating other humans throughout history. Yep, there's a lot more, unfortunately. Let me know what you guys think, and be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more creepy, disgusting, delicious videos. Later.